welcome to another segment of Coffee Talk. Joining us today is Erich Kron. Erich is a security awareness advocate at KnowBe4 and is a veteran information security professional with over 25 years of experience in the medical, aerospace, manufacturing, and defense fields. He is a former security manager for the U.S. Army's 2nd Regional Cyber Center Western Hemisphere and holds the most prestigious information security certifications. Erich worked with information security professionals around the world to provide the tools, training, and educational opportunities to succeed in information security. Welcome, Erich. We are honored to have you join us on Coffee Talk. So let's specifically now talking about accounting firms. We've seen an uptick or an interest in involvement with cybersecurity. I mean, why are more accounting firms adopting cybersecurity awareness training, and what are you seeing in the market?
Well, one of the reasons I would say is because people are really starting to understand how often this is a problem due to the human side. And I'm not using the term, which I hear all the time. A lot of people say, you know, your employees are the weakest link. And I really don't like that phrase. I actually like to think of them as our strongest defense, our last defense, but our strongest defense. Well, the word's getting out. And as we see more and more organizations getting hit by cybercrime, I mean, if you look back a couple of years, Chris, what did cybercrime look like then compared to now?
Yeah,
It's a big deal. Well, we're seeing a lot more. I remember not too long ago, I had an accountant that was old school. Man, they liked paper and books, and that was great. And that's probably a fairly secure way to do things if you're not worried about somebody breaking into your building. But how many accounting firms do you know of these days that actually write things down in a ledger? It's all digital. All that information is digital. So we have to protect it differently than we did before. And I think that's one of the things that helps drive that. We're also seeing a lot of regulations where cybersecurity awareness training is required, as is it with a lot of cyber insurance. And if you think about it, it makes sense. If these folks are pushing it, right, like insurance, cyber insurance, if they're pushing something and saying, no, it's required that you have this in order for us to insure you, that's because it's effective and it reduces their risk significantly.
and I think if you're a client of an accounting firm, knowing your firm that you're working with, that you are giving all this sensitive data to, the fact that they have a cyber and security awareness training program in place for their staff is a big plus, especially if you're handling confidential data like financials. Getting more into the science behind cybersecurity and awareness training. I mean, how are hackers targeting accounting firms, and specifically any methods or tactics, or maybe it's a social engineering tactic? What are you seeing?
Well, wire transfer fraud is always right at the top. If you look at it, wire transfer fraud falls under the larger umbrella of business email compromise or CEO fraud, depending on where you're at. And essentially, CEO fraud, it's not that it's a CEO that somebody's trying to defraud or something along those lines. It's generally what it boils down to is somebody with authority using that authority to get somebody to do something. So that's where the wire transfer fraud comes in, where somebody says, I need you to wire out $250,000, right? Or the gift card fraud. Hey, I need you to run down and buy a bunch of gift cards and then send me the numbers. And, there's some things behind that they do a pretty good job with. All of this stuff is social engineering, Chris. It all comes down to exploiting the humans and specifically our emotions. So I see a lot of this kind of stuff focusing on the accounting firms. I mean, we're talking about this is where the money is and information as well. There's going to be a lot less focus on trying to steal someone's intellectual property from an accounting firm than maybe manufacturing or someone in those areas like that, who have these designs that they've spent millions of dollars on coming up with, right? So the threat's a little bit different. Unfortunately, the threat is, generally speaking, going after money or being able to get into someone else's accounts to be able to take their money. So this is all or mostly fraud focused.
Yeah, and especially in tax season where there's an
Oh
exchanging of
yeah.
a lot of data going back and forth between firms and their clients. There's a lot of backup data, tax data, et cetera. And we've even
Yeah.
recommended instead of doing, well, one, don't do that via email, it's not secure. But two, maybe establish a portal that only your client can get into to put all that data. So maybe if you could receive an email that says see attached financials, you're not going to be inclined to open that up.
Yeah, it
You're
goes
absolutely
back to also how you transfer data within your organization. Email, in my opinion, is one of the worst ways that you can transfer sensitive information. You mentioned having a portal, and I can tell you when I talk to organizations that need information from me, like when I bought a house and stuff like that, I feel a lot better when th're like, "Hey, here's a secure service that
mhm,
you're going to log into, and then you're going to upload the file to this service." I love seeing that as opposed to just email me your W-2
right.
and all of the information that you have. Um, that to me makes me nervous right there.
100% agree. Getting back into simulated tests,
Yeah.
why are they so important in a fail-safe environment?
Well, we want people to goof up on the ones that aren't going to take our organization down or cost us a lot of money or time. That's the idea. And the fail-safe environment, again, you can have some fun with it, but it's going to be memorable when somebody makes the mistake. That's
Yeah.
one of the things we're looking for. A lot of times people will make a mistake. They'll give up their credentials or something like that on a fake login page, and they may not know for weeks or longer sometimes because it just quietly gets siphoned away. And next thing you know, a little while later, somebody has used these credentials to get into things. The the simulated stuff in the fail-safe environment is designed to pop up and be a point of failure training. Whoops, I did that. And if you do it right, a lot of times you're going to tie your education or training if you're going to have them do some remedial stuff, maybe a minute or two, but you're going to tie it to what they just did. Hey, this is why you really don't want to open a document and enable active content from somebody you don't really know. That's why it's so important. You want them to do that in a fail-safe environment so it doesn't hurt the organization. And so you can provide some point of failure training right then and there so it kind of makes sense to them what it is that they've done wrong.
We know zero trust has been around for a while. We've even started hearing the term negative trust when it comes to locking down your IT security networks. How can we apply the zero or negative trust model to employee cybersecurity training?
Well, I mean, when we're talking about something like this type of threat with the cyber, with the phishing, with the human exploitation side of things. Basically, what that means is don't trust anything, don't trust anyone. Confirm some things, right? It's not necessarily the continuous authentication and things like that you may see in some technical models. And it is an interesting term because we have heard it for years, Chris, right? And
Yep.
it's been used in so many different contexts. But here's what I think we want to get across when it comes to this specific context. And that is if you get an email from an executive that's asking you to perform an action, especially one that's around finance or personally identifiable information or anything like that that's sensitive, why not verify that it's them? In other words, look at the reply to address. It's so
Mhm.
easy to spoof the actual name that's up there, but if it's going to be something you're replying to, it's not going to go to the real address of that individual. It's going to go to something the bad actors are going to do most of the time. So you want to verify that. You want to validate that. The thing with wire transfer fraud, which we talked about once before or earlier, wire transfer fraud could really be really contained much more easily through policy and procedures than a lot of organizations understand. And it's something as simple as this. if you get a request over X amount of dollars, and that's going to be it's going to differ by your organization, what's a significant amount. But if you get a request to say transfer money or send off somebody's PII or social security number sorts of things, make sure that you have something in your provisions and your policies and procedures that says you can pick up the phone, call somebody on a known good number and just say, sir, ma'am, just wanted to verify that's what you sent me. Yes, I sent it to you, or no, hey, wait a minute, we have a problem. That 10-second phone call or text message to a known good number, and that's the key thing. Don't use one that came in with the message itself making the request, because they're on to that. But if we could just get people to do that, to verify that that is a person making that request, we could head a lot of this off. Yes, it takes time, but this comes back to that culture thing we were talking about with executives understanding, because a lot of people are afraid to call their executives and say, sir or ma'am, I'm questioning this thing that you sent me. But if they understand the threat and they understand that, like, business email compromise has been responsible for, I think they were saying $43 billion in losses since like 2016. I mean, and it's going up every year to the point we're talking several $billion a year. And if they understand that, they'll probably be happy to take a phone call real quick and go, yeah, or their executive assistant can take the call and say, yes, so and so sent that to you. That is key to, as opposed to just trusting that what you received is legitimate.
You make an excellent point, Eric, about even the phone number that could be listed in the signature down below could be a relay or a bad phone number or a fake phone number that's relaying to the cyber. I have heard stories now where there's phone numbers down there and you're calling it and a human being will actually answer it, but it
Yeah.
is a potential scam that's trying to get you to click on something. So when they say zero trust, they're literally the entire contents of this email, unless it is independently verified from a known good source on your own. Don't trust the links or the phone numbers in there. Excellent point, Eric. I think a lot of our audience members may or may not be aware of that. What about measuring the impact or the value of cybersecurity training? Is there a method to see if your training is really making a difference?
Well, it's always tough to measure something like this, because in the grand scheme of things, if your cybersecurity training is spot on and crushing it, then you're going to be seeing less losses. But how do you say I would have had this much loss without it? Okay, that's always the thing that's tricky to wrap your head around. One of the things that I like to see people measure, and there's really two key things I like to see here. I am a huge fan of reporting phishing emails, reporting those phishing messages. And I think that's a very important thing to look at. There's a couple reasons behind that. Like we have, it's called the Fish Alert button. It's free. You don't have to be a customer to even use it. It's a great tool that helps get that information to people to look at real quick. But if people are reporting phishing emails, that means they've seen them. That means they were able to tell that it was phishing, and it means that they took an action, the proper action, which is not to click on it and send it on to someone else. That's important to watch for. If nobody's reporting anything, or let's say all of the reports the organization are sending you are actually spam and not phishing, you probably don't want to waste your time. And to be clear, spam is just trying to sell you junk, right? Phishing is much more malicious. So you don't really want to spend all your time sorting through spam, but that would tell me, if everybody's reporting spam, that maybe there's a fundamental misunderstanding of what it is that we're fighting against, or the difference between the two. And maybe that's a hole in our education, what we're teaching people. The other metric that I'm really liking hearing people talk about is not just the reporting of it, but how long does it take to report it? So with the simulated ones, this is pretty good. If it takes somebody a week to report a simulated attack, that tells me they're either not checking their email enough, or they're kind of just ignoring it and not actually doing the reporting until later. The thing about reporting is not only does it tell you some things, but for a lot of organizations, they've started tracking this within organizations, and they'll look at it and they'll say, oh, you know what? I got 4 things reported with this email address, the from address or IP, or this subject. I had 4 different people report it within about a half hour. Clearly, we're a target of a campaign. And then they'll go to their email servers and search for those things. And they may be able to remove it before 10 or 20 more people are even exposed to the threat. So there's a huge, huge amount of value in that piece of it right there. So that's kind of, I think that's a very important thing to measure and make sure that people are doing well.
Absolutely. Totally agree. Thank you, Erich. Thank you for sharing your experience and expertise on this topic. And for those who are still with us, thank you for joining us today. If you would like more tips and best practices from the experts, please like and subscribe, and more videos will come. Cheers.